all, welcome to our Fix It Flat workshop, first of many bike education classes to come. Um, Obviously, bike maintenance is a big part of riding, and when we catch flats and stuff like that, the goal is for all of our riders to know how to fix a flat so that way we can all keep going and it won't kind of inconvenience anybody or pull up the ride. So thank you for showing up. Shout out to Schwinn for working with us on this program, our brand new partner. We're looking forward to a very productive year of cycling and, again, changing the narrative of cycling around the world pretty much. As I mentioned, we are at Drip Lounge right now in Brooklyn. The address is 830 Riders Avenue. Definitely stop by. Haitian cuisine, coffee, breakfast, lunch. They got some dope salmon burgers. Feel free to stop by here anytime. Thank you out to the owners for opening up your doors for us as they always do. Shout out to the e-board, Marv, Shari, Millie. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all for helping this Good Cold Wheels run. Another quick announcement, membership. We definitely encourage folks to still sign up. The best bet is to do it at the top of the month. Through Patreon, you could look at our Instagram bio, follow our website, Good Cold Bike Club, to find out information about membership. And just a quick shout out to our sponsors also, 333 Lounge, For Purpose, High Vibrations, Juice Bar, Fulton Bikes, Drip, and of course Schwinn. So those are my quick little announcements. I don't think I'm missing anything. But without further ado, I kind of wanted to introduce Ryan, who works for Schwinn. Ryan, you want to kind of introduce yourself, tell the people who you are?
Yeah, my name is Ryan Burkett, and I'm the Senior Communications Manager at Pacific Cycle, which is the company that owns Schwinn and another bike brand, Mongoose. So yeah, really excited. I was telling Drew earlier, been riding seriously for probably about 8 years, and I've encountered several flats. So I'm excited to walk you through what I've learned through the years of how to change a flat.
Nice. Okay, I'm looking at the question, trying to see how that works. Okay, got it. So definitely, if you have questions, feel free to ask. We would love to raffle off a bike, some other cool prizes. So make sure you all are being interactive, talking to the people, and we'll figure out how that raffle will go. I'm actually gonna turn it over to you, Ryan, so you could pick the prize because I don't want anybody getting mad at me because I got a lot of people threatening me for this bike. So I'm gonna allow Ryan to kind of take a look at the comments and figure out who should I win a prize, or even Sherry. But I'm not picking a winner. I'll tell you that much because I don't want to get yelled at. Way too much pressure. So yeah, Ryan, without further ado, let's get it going.
All right, cool. So the way that I kind of have partitioned tonight is kind of three main sections: how to prepare for the ride so that if a flat happens, you have the right tools to change your tire. The second part is going to be how to get your tire off your bike, or how to get your wheel off your bike. A lot of times the way that the weight is distributed on the bike, the rear tire is often the one that goes flat, especially when you're in the middle of riding. And that can be the most intimidating tire to change because you have to get it off and get the gears out of the way and everything else. So I'm just going to show you really quick, walk through how to get that wheel off. And then we'll go through the actual changing the tire out. So I'm really excited to walk you guys through everything, and we'll start kind of with that first portion, which is just kind of how to prepare, what tools to bring on your ride. So typically, the way, especially when I'm out doing a road bike ride, I'll have like a pack on the back of my saddle like this, and in that pack, I have just kind of four main things. I got a multi-tool, which looks a little bit like this. You should be able to pick one of these up at your local bike shop. I know a lot of the Good Co team goes to Fulton Bikes. I'm sure they have an assortment of these. This one I think is about 15 or 20 bucks, but you can also get like cheap ones for like $1 that are look something more like this. But you just need something that has those hex keys on them, because a lot of the bike is done with those hex keys, and they can just kind of loosen and tighten a lot of things for you. So if you're on your ride and you run into a mechanical issue, that's just kind of an easy way to fix it quickly and get back on the ride. So definitely pick up a multi-tool. So write that one down if you don't already have it. The next thing
Can you say something real quick? If
Yeah.
you're a Good Co member, if you ride with us regularly, please have one of these, because I've bought at least 5 or 6 of these, and I pass them out and I never get them back. So make sure you have one of these. I'm tired of letting y'all borrow these. I'm tired of letting y'all borrow these. Keep going, Ryan. My bad. I got passionate about that.
No, that's good. The second thing that you got to have in your pack is what's called a tire lever. And this is what a tire lever looks like. The brand that I really have found a lot of success in is called Pedro's. Pedro's tire levers. They're really cheap. I think a set of these is like $3 or $4. They do have some that are like 99 cents, and I would just recommend staying away from those ones because these do have a tendency to snap when you're using them for leverage. And you'll see kind of what I mean when we get into actually changing out the tire. But yeah, pick up a set of tire levers. So we got the multi-tool, the tire lever. You need a spare tube so that when your tube pops within your tire, you can get the new tube in there. Something to pay attention to on your tube is they typically have a size written on the sidewall of your tire. So if you look at your tire, and it'll tell you kind of what size tube it will accept. And you'll just want to make sure that you match your tube to your tire size. Otherwise, it may not fit when you go to swap it out. So not all tubes are made alike. You definitely want to get the one that fits the set of tires that you're riding with. So just be cognizant of that. And then the last thing is some sort of air source. So on my rides, I use what's called just a CO2 cartridge. So this thing kind of screws off, and then inside of here, there's a cartridge that has CO2 in it. Another really cheap option is to just invest in one of these little tire pumps. The only thing that's a little inconvenient about the tire pumps is it just takes a really long time. So just be aware that if you're going this route, the ride might get away from you a little bit. So the CO2 will allow you to inflate your tire really quickly and get back on the road fast. So if you are on a group ride, like with the Goodco team, the CO2 cartridges might make more sense. When you're looking at the CO2, you got something, Drew?
No, I was gonna say also, this is a little cool little gadget a lot of us have been investing in. It's like an electric tire air pump. So it just fits right in your backpack. You charge it up, plug it right in, and it's electric.
That's awesome.
You buy these on Amazon. These are cool, but there's just another option for you that you got.
Yeah, no, thanks for dropping that in. That's really cool. A few other things that you want to be aware of is sometimes your rear tire, you got to look at how your rear tire is being held onto your bike. So sometimes it'll be like a nut and bolt, and in that case, you need to have a wrench with you so you can get that tire off. Otherwise, a lot of modern bikes now have what's called a quick release lever, quick release skewer, and it looks something like this. It's got this little lever on it that helps you tighten it down. This goes through your rear axle and your tire, and then you just kind of loosen it and tighten it by opening this guy up and then moving this nut. So just be aware of what you have on the back of your bike and on the front tire, because if it is a nut and bolt like this bike behind me is, then you actually need like a legit wrench in order to get that off. And that's often a tool that people out on a group ride will not have. So just be aware of that when you're going to do that. One other thing I wanted to call out as an option is patch kit. So some people, instead of swapping in a new tube, will actually try and patch their tube. And you can buy a little patch kit like this that is a couple bucks at the bike shop, and it's got these little patches in it. You just glue them on to the hole where the air is leaking out, and then you can just put that same tube back in. The issue with doing that while you're riding is sometimes it's really hard to find the hole in the tube because it's like a little pinhole. And I'll show you a trick when we get into the actual tire swap that'll help kind of find those little pinholes. But just be aware that if you're patches I usually use when I get back to the house to save the tube, to salvage the tube. It's a little tough to patch a tube while you're on a ride, so just be aware of that. But yeah, so we'll get into the second part, which is how to get the tire off the bike, or how to get the wheel off the bike. Just to recap really quick on that first section, the 4 things you're going to need is a multi-tool, a tire lever, an air source, and a spare tube. So those are the 4 things you should for sure have in your bag. And you don't need to have a fancy saddle bag like this. You can just put it in a fanny pack or throw it in your backpack if you're just carrying a backpack with you. So yeah, let's get into.
You can invest in a nice Schwinn standalone pump.
Hey, look at that. That's really nice. I don't even have one of those. Gotta send me that.
Paid advertising.
So the next thing we're gonna do is just kind of show you how to get that rear wheel off. As I mentioned, a lot of times when you're on a ride, because most of your weight is distributed on the back of the bike, That's often what wheel will end up getting the flat, which is unfortunate, but as long as you know how to take it off, then you'll have high confidence and you'll be good to go. So one of the things that took me a long time to learn was that the rear derailleur, the thing that actually holds your chain on, is really easily manipulated. So it's just a couple of springs in there that are holding that tension tight. So in order to get your wheel off, first you'll loosen either the nuts or that quick release skewer I was telling you guys about. I already pre-loosened this a little bit so I can just finger tight. And then when you go to take the wheel out, you'll just loosen that tension on that rear derailleur by just pushing it down. You can kind of see it activate here. One other quick pro tip actually is to get your chain in the smallest cog so it gives you the most slack. So if you switch your gears and get that chain down to the smallest cog, that'll give you plenty of slack in your chain so that it's easier to take your wheel off. And then you can also remember when you put your wheel back on where that chain goes in so it slides back into your dropouts. So you'll just push that derailleur back, and that allows you then to pull out the tire. Should just fall out. Then you can lift up off the chain. So once you take your tire out, or once you take your wheel out, and you're going to set your bike down, make sure that you set your bike down on the side that does not have the derailleur, because you don't want to bend your derailleur hanger, which is a really easy part to bend. So when you set your bike down to change out your tire, just make sure you're setting it on the other side so you don't damage that derailleur. So we're just going to set this down. So it probably looked a little bit easier than it is sometimes. To get the wheel off can be really finicky. Another thing to look for if you have rim brakes. So if your braking system actually is two pads that squeeze the rim of your tire, you're going to need to deactivate those rim brakes in order to pull the tire out. If you have disc brakes, like Drew, do you have disc brakes on your bike? Looks like?
No.
So can you hold up your wheel? Yeah. So you got. Oh no, that's just the cassette. Okay, so you have rim brakes too. So for the rim brakes, you just want to make sure you deactivate those by loosening the pin, and then it just allows them to kind of open up, so then you can pull your wheel out. So just a little pro tip there. So now that we got the wheel off, we're going to start working on changing out the tube. And there's a couple of schools of thought on this. What some people do is they actually just undo one side of the tire around the rim, and then they pull the tube out. If you get a flat on the ride, it's my personal belief that you should take the entire tire off, because there could be something stuck in the rubber that's actually puncturing your tube. And we want to check for that to make sure that it's safe before we put a new tube in, because that second tube would just get punctured again and you get another flat. So I'm going to show you how to take everything off, and then we'll put everything back on. So with your tire, you're going to grab your tire lever. And then, so your tire right now, if you're doing this with me, your tire should be flat. So if it's not flat, go ahead and let the air out of it. You can do that if you have what's called a Schrader valve, which looks like this. It just has it's kind of a wider valve. If you guys can see that. Let's see here. So that is a Schrader valve. And if that's the type you have, you just want to depress that center pin, and that'll let the air out. Otherwise, if you have one that looks like this is called a Presta valve, and it's got this little nut on top, and you actually need to loosen that in order for the air to come out. So once you loosen it up, you should be able to just push on the top, and that'll let the air out of the tube. So knowing what style of tube you have, whether it be that Schrader or the Presta, is also when you go to the bike shop, they're going to ask you if you want Schrader or Presta valve for your replacement tube. And you can do different ones. You just need to be aware of what you got so that whatever air source you're using accepts that type of valve stem. So just be aware of that. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start by.
If I could pause, Ryan, for 1 second, just let people know again. There's a question box. If you have any questions, or if we're moving too fast, feel free to comment. You can slow down or address any questions. Garrison said I'm struggling a little bit. I got one arm, Garrison. Don't judge me. All right, no questions yet. Let's introduce Ryan. What up, Ryan? Ryan and Ryan. All right, you can keep going, bro.
Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and start by removing that tire. So we're just gonna you're gonna take your tire lever, and sometimes depending on how tight your tires are, sometimes you can just do this by hand. You don't really need the tire lever, but it does help. And there definitely will be situations where you'll need the tire lever. Trust me, do not leave home without a tire lever. So you're gonna lean that tire back, and then you're gonna slip in that little hook around the rim. You're gonna slip that under, and then you're just gonna pop it over the rim. So it's just gonna pop right over there. Perfect. And then you can either push or pull to get the rest of the wheel off, and you're just gonna work your way around it. So I'm pushing. It's gonna go like this. We're gonna work our way around. And then you should get to a point where the entire tire is off that side. And then, like I mentioned, some people are of the school of thought, if they're in a hurry and want to get back to the ride, they'll just pop their tube out here to save time to not have to put the tire back on. But we're going to take the full thing off today. So what I'm going to do is the side that I already loosened up, I'm going to go to the other side of the tire, and then just with my thumbs, I'm just going to push the entire tire with the tube over the side of the rim. That, and we'll just pull it out. So now, once you get to this stage where you have your tire and your tube set aside, the first thing you're going to check is the actual rim. So there might be some sort of defect within the rim, on the rim tape. So you'll just want to inspect this with your eye and with your fingers. So you'll kind of run your fingers over it and just take a look at it. Make sure there's nothing that looks sharp that's going to be sticking into your tube. And you can kind of use the valve hole as your guide to know that you've gone all the way around it. If your rim tape, so once you open up your tire, there's usually this strip of plastic to help protect your tube. That's called rim tape. You just want to look at that. Sometimes it gets folded over, so just adjust it as it needs to be adjusted. Real easy though. Okay, so we've decided that the rim is safe, so we're going to set the rim aside. And now we're going to pull the tube out of the tire.
Ryan, can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
Is there anything that, like, usually, obviously glass and, riding over rough surfaces, but is there anything that usually causes flats that we could prevent from happening before we get on the bike?
Yeah, there's two reasons typically that I get flats. One is called a pinch flat, which is really so you put the tube in incorrectly, and then it pinches itself. So when you inflate it, it actually creates a little pinhole in it, and then over time the thing that just goes flat completely, and that's a user error. And then there's the the environment with either like little pebbles get lodged in the rubber of your tire, or little pieces of glass, or little shards of metal. So I'll show you kind of how to make sure you don't get a pinch flat once we put the tire back on. But right now we're kind of going over trying to identify where the hole is coming from. So just like we did with the rim, we're going to take the tire itself, and I usually just throw it over my shoulder, open it up so you can see the inside of it, and then I just work it all the way around. And what you're doing is you're just looking at the inside of your tire, making sure that there's nothing that's poking through. You can kind of rub your thumbs through there. A lot of times you'll just find little pieces of little like pebbles that have been lodged in there, little pieces of glass. And the more you ride, you'll actually start to have a preference for tires, because you'll notice that there are some tires that just have a little bit thicker wall, and allow them to penetrate a little bit less. So you'll find a tire you really like, and I'm sure your local bike shop will have a tire they would recommend.
Got you. Quick question. Stan asked a question. He said, "What if I get a flat with a tubeless setup? Can I use a tube of the? Can I use a tube if the puncture is not too large itself to seal?"
Absolutely. So a lot of people that run tubeless don't carry a spare tube because they're typically running tubeless for the weight savings. But if you do have a tube with you or somebody you're riding with has a tube, you can absolutely throw that in there to patch it. And that'll get you home for sure. If the hole is big enough, then you'll need to put some sort of reinforcement on the inside of the tire. A lot of people use like a dollar bill to just reinforce that to get you home. You'll get creative, but you can definitely, to answer your question in short, yes, you can replace it with a tube, not a problem. So now we've checked the rim. The rim looks safe. We've checked the tire looks safe. So let's take a look at the tube itself. As I mentioned, if you want to use the patch kit, sometimes it's hard to find the little pinholes in these tubes. And kind of one of the tricks that I've learned is using your skin. A lot of times my cheek, just as like you run it within a couple inches of your cheek, and then all of a sudden you'll feel a little breeze when you find the hole. So if you kind of run it past your face, then eventually you'll find that hole and you can patch it up if you want. Otherwise, if you just bring a spare tube, then you can just swap in a new tube. So we'll go ahead and do that now. So when you pull your tube out of your sack, out of your bag, it's going to be like flat and deflated like this. To make it a little bit easier to install into your tire, I would recommend putting a little bit of air in it first to kind of bring it up to something that looks like a tire shape. So you don't want too much air in it because then it'll be hard to actually fit in. But you want it to start getting its shape. So go ahead and put a little bit of air into your tube just to make it a little bit easier to install into the tire or into the wheel. And once you get it to be kind of the general shape of a wheel by putting a little bit of air in it, then what we're going to do is we're going to start by putting I'll wait for you there. Looks like we're
putting some air in the tire.
Another trick for the tubeless setup. So I run a tubeless setup on my mountain bike, and there's actually these things called tubeless plugs, and they're just like little strips of fabric. And when you get a slit in your tire and you're starting to lose too much air, you can actually shove this little piece of fabric into your tire, and it'll allow that tubeless sealant to then capture it so you can reinflate your tire. So that's another easy little tool to bring with you if you're running a tubeless setup.
A question came in, they said, is there any specific brand of tire or tube that you recommend?
The tires I really like are Continentals. Continental tires, for whatever reason, have been like tanks for me. They rarely go flat if they do. Tubes, I don't really have a preference. I just go to my local shop and whatever they have in stock, I'll take. So I don't really have a preference for tubes, but tires, I almost exclusively run Continentals just because I've found a lot of success with those. And they're pretty cheap. I think they're $30 for a pair or something like that.
Tell Continental to cut the check.
That's right. That's right. I was actually at a trade show once and the booth next to me was the Continental dealer. And I told him, I was like, hey, I talk about your tires all the time, man. You guys need to make me a brand ambassador. He wasn't hearing it. He wasn't having it.
Right. And one last question is, does this process differ depending on the bike as far as changing tires? Is it pretty much generally all the same?
No, it's pretty much all the same. One of the questions that came in was about tubeless. That changes it a little bit because you're not actually running a tube. But if you're running a traditional inner tube with a traditional tire, doesn't matter if it's a mountain bike or a hybrid bike or a road bike, it's going to look very, very similar to what we're going through today.
Copy. All right,
so now that we got we got our three parts, we got our rim, we've got our tire, we've got our tube. So we're going to start reassembling everything. So we're going to grab the rim and our tire. So this isn't a huge deal, but the tires are usually directional and they have an arrow on them on which way they're supposed to roll. So if you look along the side of your tire, there should be a little arrow that says rotation and shows you which way it goes. So like I said, it's not a big deal if you put it on backwards. It's not the end of the world. But if you want the like maximum impact of the tread of your tire, then you want it to go the right rotation. So just be aware of that. So we're gonna start this by just putting the tire back on. So you should be able to do this with your thumbs, but you're gonna take the tire bead, which is the edge of the tire, and you're just gonna thread it back onto your rim. You only want one side. You only want one side of your tire on right now, so we can get the tube in there. Okay, so just one side of the tire.
So you said you put the tube back in first, or you putting the rubber on first?
Nope. Tire first. Tire first. No tube.
I got you.
So you want just one side of the tire on the rim. So there should be a gap like this, so you can see there's a. See how you can see into the cavity here?
Right.
So you just want one side of the tire on. Then you're gonna look at your rim and you're gonna find your valve stem hole. So there should the hole where the valve needs to go through. Right here.
Yep.
And we're gonna take our tube. You're just gonna thread the valve stem through. Just like that. This is kind of the fun part. So I've got the valve in, so that's holding the tube in place. And then now I need to get the tube into the tire. So the way I'm going to do that is just with my fingers. I'm just going to kind of tuck it under. And I'm going to go all the way around here. Just tuck her in.
Just for a second. We are readjusting the side of the tire. Hey, DJ.
Just tucking her in. And this is the part where you kind of want to take your time, because if this portion of the install is done incorrectly, this is where you're going to get that pinch flat when you reinflate the tire. So just take your time tucking it in.
Yeah. So what we did not kind of incorrectly is the side of the tire we had out. You probably want to have the tire the part that's exposed is where you want to put the tube in.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So he's kind of readjusting that part right now.
And the tube that's in your guys' shot is probably a little flat. You want to get a little bit more body to that by giving it a little bit more air.
All right, let me do that.
Because with that, since it's like hanging there, that's gonna be hard to thread into the. That's gonna be hard to thread into the tire. So give it a little bit more body by inflating it a little bit.
How much percentage of air would you say to put in the tire?
You want it to be. So it should be able to hold the circle shape with you holding it with one hand. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So right now yours is kind of an oval because it doesn't have enough air in it.
Okay.
There you go. That's good.
Like that?
That'll just make it a little bit easier when you go to put it in there.
Got it. That's what. Got it.
And I will say that bikes, like, they feel really intimidating because it seems like there's a lot of moving parts. And there's like Presta valves and Schrader valves, and you could do CO2 or you could do a bike pump. There's like a lot of options, but I promise that they're way simpler than they seem. So don't let the bike intimidate you. Just stay calm if you get a flat. It's really a simple fix, and 9 times out of 10, somebody's going to stop and help you anyways. You'll be making a new friend when you're doing it. So don't let it overwhelm you too much.
Got it.
So you'll thread in that stem.
Action. Yeah. About this now.
So at this point, you're going to want to pull that tire over the front of the rim.
If it's unlocked,
So
the air leaks out.
1 second, Ryan. Say it again.
If it's unlocked, the air leaks out. So
Right.
the people have to lock that
Yeah.
down before the air does
Yeah, Ryan. You can say it.
So talking about, see the little on these valves, they have like a little piece right here. You see a little piece that tightens the valve that allows the air to come in and out. If it's not locked, the air leaks out. So make sure that's locked
when you're putting the tube back in.
That's a good call out. Another thing that's kind of interesting with the Presta valves, which might be a little annoying if you're trying to change your tire, is a lot of times they come with these little lock rings that actually screw all the way down the whole shaft, and then it actually holds it so that it can't come out of your rim. And so you'll be pulling on this thing and it won't be coming out and you'll think it's stuck. And it's because it has that little lock ring in it that they're showing right there.
We took it off before. We forgot to point that out. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, we're gonna put it back on.
Yeah. And those things are nice to have because it allows your stem to not rattle around within your rim. So it kind of minimizes noise and it keeps your stem straight. But just know that because sometimes you'll be in a hurry and you'll be flustered when you got a flat tire. You'll be trying to pull out that tube and it won't come. Just make sure you check, make sure that little nut's off of there. Yeah, I like that comment. Practice makes perfect. That's definitely true. A lot of times, especially when I was early in my riding years, I would just try and do anything I could just to get home, even if it meant riding on a flat for a couple miles, because I just wanted to be able to like sit on my couch and do this rather than be on the side of the road doing it.
Right.
And if you have a chance to just do it at home, like if you want to just switch out, like for example, if you have Schrader valves and you want to swap them out for Presta valves, just take that opportunity to practice it at home instead of having the bike shop do it. And that'll just, that practice will just give you an opportunity to really get comfortable with it.
Thanks. The educator in me wants to say practice makes progress. So, because we're never perfect, but
I like that.
I see what you're saying though.
That's a good.
Just to reiterate, it's we're in the winter time, so now's the best time to learn. All right, so the tube is in.
All right, tube is in. So we still have one side free here. Okay, so there's one side of the tire is still off the rim, and that's good because we need to check to make sure that that tube isn't folded over on itself and going to give us a pinch flat. So what you're going to do is you're going to start by just opening it up, and you're going to push with your thumbs to create a little space, and you should be able to see your rim tape in there. So mine's yellow. You can see that rim tape there. So if you can't see the rim tape, it's because your tube is in between your tire and the side of your rim. And if you inflated your tire that way, you're going to get a flat tire. So you're just going to go all the way around. You're going to make sure you can see your rim tape on that side. And once you successfully navigate your way around, your tire should be all the way on your rim. Once you get close to the end, where the tire is going to be completely on the rim, you might need to use your tire lever again. So if you grab that tire lever when you get close to the end and you just put it on the rim, and this time, so last time you hooked it like this to get the tire off. This time you're going to flip it over to put the tire back on. You're going to put that on your rim. You're just going to slide it along and it'll pop right back on. Really easy.
Good. Good.
Well, we got it.
So now that the tire's back on, we're going to do one more inspection to make sure we don't get that pinch flat. So you're just going to go around. All I'm doing is I'm just leaning the tire over so I can see that rim tape, and I can see that the tube is successfully in the tire and not pinched between the rim and the tire. So just working my way around. Take your time on this step because you don't want to get a pinch flat, especially because that's your last tube most likely. You don't want to get a double flat on one ride. So just take your time, making sure it looks good. Now we pump it up. So you can either use your hand pump or you can use the CO2. The CO2, I want to preface this quick because I've made this mistake a few times. Some of the CO2 cartridges are activated with things that look like this. So this is like $1 or $2 at your bike shop. If you screw one of these cartridges into this style of inflator, all of the CO2 is going to just pump right out the other side and you're going to lose your CO2. So if you're using CO2 for the first time, I would recommend bringing 2 cartridges in case you make a mistake on the first one. Then you at least have a second chance. I have done that before where I completely blew, because once you pop the cap, it's gone. The whole thing just leaves the bottle. So aware that if you're going to use CO2, this time I would recommend just bringing 2 cartridges just to be safe. But the way you do it is with these like cheaper ones, you just screw it onto the valve stem, and then you screw in the CO2 cartridge. And then once it punctures the CO2 cartridge, it'll fill up your tire right away. So just make sure you're at the stage where we're at right now, and that'll do that. This
I got
one,
a quick question. Does the CO2, can it ever overinflate it, or does it fill it up to the brim properly?
no, it can't. It can definitely pop your tire, so it can overinflate it. If you, so this style is really nice. I think this was like $10 or $15. And this gives you like a trigger so you can control how much CO2 is coming out. And it also makes it so that once you pop the CO2 seal, it doesn't all just escape immediately. So this is the style I would recommend if you're going to do CO2. It also has a lockout on it so you don't lose CO2 once you screw it in. So. And then once you get that tire inflated, you just got to throw the wheel back on. So, Drew, did you want me to walk through reinstalling the wheel, or do you guys, is it kind of, I mean, it's similar to taking it off, but I can put it back on if you guys want.
Yeah, we should. It's because it's the back tire. The front tire is a lot easier. The back tire sometimes takes a little bit of work. So.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep. So, when it's time to put your wheel back on, remember before we took the wheel off, we put it in the smallest gear, so we knew where the chain went when we put it back on. So when you're putting the wheel back on, you want that chain to be in the same spot as where you took it off. If you forget, it's not a big deal. The first time you do a pedal stroke, the chain will readjust itself based on where the derailleur is. But knowing that it's in the smallest gear makes it easiest to put back on. So just a little pro tip. So we're gonna pick our bike back up.
Oh, dang. I forgot this.
Then the easiest way to do this is actually to position the tire first. So I slide it in. A lot of people actually do this with the bike upside down so that they don't have to balance everything. And that's totally fine if that's the route you want to take. I'm just, for simplicity reasons, I'm going to show you this way, just make it easier to see. So I'm going to take the chain, and what I'm doing is I'm pulling back the rear derailleur again. So like I mentioned before, that has that spring in it. You just want to pull that back to get it out of the way. We're going to put that chain over the cassette. And then as you slide the bike frame down, it'll just slide right back onto the dropout bit. Just like that. So if you have a skewer, if you have a quick release skewer, it's going to be a little bit different than what I just showed with the bolts here. Pops right back in. And then you just need to tighten back down your quick release skewer. I want to show you something really quick with the quick release because I've seen this mistake a lot. When you're ready to ride, your quick release lever should be in like this. So this is how you know you're ready to ride. A lot of people have it open like this, and then the way they tighten it is they just tighten this second nut over here. But what you actually want to do is you want to tighten this nut to the point where this one has tension on it, and then you use that tension to secure it in place like that. Don't leave this lever open. Otherwise, you have the chance of this coming loose and then your wheel falling off. So just be careful. Just make sure you tighten that puppy down. I saw somebody just made a comment about thanking God that this was saved so they can watch it again. It can be, like I said, it can feel overwhelming, and I'm sure it sounds like I'm saying a lot of things. But if you do it once or twice, it's really going to come like second nature. You'll have a lot of fun with it, and it'll be easier than it sounds. I promise you.
How fast can you change a tire? Like NASCAR, pulled over. How fast can you change a tire?
I would bet probably 3 minutes is probably how long it would take me to from start to finish.
I'm gonna work on it. I'm trying to go to 2.5.
All right, all right. Well, in that case, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. It takes me 2 minutes. Just kidding.
Got it. Is
No,
there
it's
such thing as too tight with the quick release? Can it be too tight?
so the the short answer is yes, it can be. The more complex answer is probably not. Um, the depending on what material your bike frame is made out of will depend on how much force you're going to want to hammer this down. The bike in the background here is a steel frame bike. I can tighten this as much as I want. It likely won't cause any issues. If you have a carbon frame bike and you over tighten your quick release, you do have the chance of cracking your chainstays. So depends on what material your bike is, but if you have more specific questions about your particular bike, let me know. And also, the tighter you make it, the harder it is going to be to get it off. So just be aware of that too. It doesn't need to be. You don't need to over tighten it. It'll stay with just a normal tension.
Cool, cool, cool. Nice. Cool. We're good
Any
to
other
go.
questions?
And let me check the question. How to enter the raffle? Swing gang, swing gang. Is it safe to go 40 psi going tubeless? There's a question that came up.
Yeah, for sure. Fat bikes. So the bigger the tire, the more volume it holds. Fat tire bikes, which are like 4-inch wide tires, some people run those at like 8, 10 psi. So tubeless, the tubeless setup, you can go really low. 40 is not an issue at all. I think I run my mountain bike tires at like 25 psi. But there should be a recommendation on the side of your tire about like the range of what psi it should be at, and that's definitely a good call out. That's a good reminder just to remind everybody that you want to look at that psi. If you guys are on like a group ride and you want to be able to roll fast to keep up with everybody, then you want to go to the higher end of that psi to make your tires stiffer. They'll roll faster. If you want to just like relax and you want the tires to kind of eat up all the road vibrations and stuff, then you want to run at the low end of the range for psi, because that'll allow more cushioning and it'll be more of a chill ride. So there's little tweaks like that you can do to increase your speed. If you feel like you're working harder than everybody else and you're not keeping up, checking out the psi on your tire is definitely one way to do it. And another really simple fix is the tread on your tire. So if you have like a hybrid bike, you're going to have a ton of tread on your rubber because it's made to be taken off road. But if you're riding only on asphalt, then you can get really slick tires, and that'll speed you up without, if you do the same amount of effort, you'll be going faster because you're not working against the tread. So when you're riding bikes, there's a lot of like small tweaks you can do like that to make yourself faster. So if Drew's beating you and he looks like he's not working very hard, it's probably because he just got nicer tires, you know?
That's exactly why. On my new Schwinn fastback.
Yeah, it's because he's got the fastback. Anything else you wanted to cover, Drew?
Because of the sake of time, I think that's pretty much most of the content. I mean, we're gonna save the video. We'll definitely be able to field questions and do more things like this. I know we have some other content that we're gonna film, so I don't know if there's any other questions. Is there any maintenance besides tires that is needed for your bike? Is there any other maintenance besides tires that's needed for your bike? Absolutely. I think I kind of always tell people treat your car like your bike. You know what I mean? You should always get it serviced regularly. Make sure that your brakes are working, which we'll get into another conversation. Making sure that your seat is the right length, seat is the right height, the frame in the front is right for your body also. So you definitely want to get it checked out and not show up to a good car ride with flat tires or or being unprepared for the ride. So that's a long answer, not a short answer. But yeah, I think that's it on our end. As far as the bike raffle is concerned, I want to deliberate with the crew. I think we've been paying attention to see who's in the chat. and we're gonna save the live to talk about engagement and what we want to do as far as raffles. But we see who's in the chat, and we will definitely make the announcement.
Drew, I was at I stopped by the office yesterday, and I saw that we have a bunch of Schwinn fanny packs. So why don't we give away 10 of those fanny packs, and people can use those to carry their tools in.
Love it. Sounds good. What I'll do is we'll reach out to some folks via DM for those Schwinn bags. I have some right here. I have mine here. You can definitely keep your stuff in it.
Yep, that exact bag. We'll give away 10 of those for people who want to carry their tools that way.
Perfect. So sounds good. So make sure you check your DMs. You'll announce the winner, and we'll shout you out on the gram sometime this week when we decide who that winner's gonna be. Shout out to y'all in the chat. Tiff was good. Did I close? Oh, I thought I closed it by accident. Dre, what's up? I see y'all here. Definitely ready for the riding season. Thank you, Ryan, for this. Thank you to the team. And I don't think I have anything else.
Cool.
That's it. Made the announcements. Shout out our partners. Yeah, wonderful. That's it. Keep Schwinning.
Yep. Talk to you guys later.
All right, Ryan. Talk to you later, boss.
See ya.
All right. Okay, how I do this? How do you end this live? I don't want to hit X.